Okay, now let's move on to the three types of stops.
Okay, so there's three types of stops when you're dealing with the police. The first one that we're going to talk about is consensual stop, and this is when a cop, let's say you're just like hanging out somewhere and a cop comes up to you and says, hey, how's it going? Like, what's your name? What are you doing here? Who do you know? And those are consensual. And you have to keep in mind, if you're not doing anything illegal, the cop they can go up to you and start asking you these questions. Now, that's when you have the right to be silent and you have the right not to talk to the police at that point, because you're not doing anything, you're not being detained, you're not being arrested. So these are voluntary encounters. So what you do at that point, if you find yourself in that situation, is to say, you know, I don't need to talk to you at this point. Am I free to go? And if you're not being detained, then the police officer has to say yes. So it's really important to really not talk to the police and really make that a habit, because what may happen sometimes, like if I were asking Eddie, like, oh, you know, what time did you get out of work? And Eddie says, well, I got out at 8 o'clock. And I'm like, okay, well, where do you work? And he says that he works on this corner and that corner. Then the cops, sometimes what they do is say, oh, really? Because there was a robbery at 8:15 at this corner, and you fit the description, so now you're being detained, and now you may be arrested. So it's really, really important that if it's a consensual encounter, that you not say anything. And the key phrase is to always ask, am I free to go? And then after that, you can go on your business. The second one is a detention, and this is if they have reasonable suspicion. So this, and you can be detained if you look like someone that they're looking for, things like that, which happens a lot. But this is like a limited investigation, because you're not really being arrested. You're not being arrested yet, but they're just questioning you. And again, you do have the right to remain silent. You don't need to talk to the police. Okay, and then something important for the detention is that you do have to show your ID, but you don't have to talk to the police. So what could end up happening if you refuse to show your ID is that they can say, oh, really? Well, you're not cooperating with us. Let me take you down to the station so we can fingerprint you. And that might make matters even worse. So if you have it on you, show your ID, but again, don't say anything at all. And this is, if you're being detained, they do have the right to pat search you, but they don't have the right to like put their hands in their pockets or kind of like, well, let me see what you have in there. And they don't, so they can pat search you, but they can't reach into your pockets or get your backpack or start looking through your things. And again, don't consent to a back search. So oftentimes what the police do is they don't even ask you. They see your backpack and they're like, all right, well, let me see this. Let me see what you got in here. So it's really important that if you find yourself in that situation, again, the key phrase is say, I do not consent to this. Because like Eddie was saying, if you say that you don't consent to it and it's an illegal search, if they do end up finding something in your backpack, then that can be thrown out as evidence because it was illegal in the first place. But again, if you're being detained, they can pat search you. Show your ID just to make things a little easier for you. But again, don't talk, don't say anything at all. But also keep in mind, if you don't have your ID, it's not a crime.